the Imperial Guard has received a number of points changes and an update to some datasheets, all right? Or to a datasheet, I should say. And I would say overall, the Guard have come out very, very spicy. Looking really, really good. Like, some people are going to be very upset. I think some specific builds have once again been diddled. But I think overall, this Guard are eating good again. I truly believed going into this that Guard were going to have been nerfed. But every single balance patch that comes out for the Guard, every single point that comes out of the Guard, either we get a side grade or we get an upgrade. And this time, I think we've had an upgrade overall. So, let's go through the updates. There's only one really bad one, and that's Bulgrin. Bulgrin are now, they've had another 20-point increase for 3 and another 40-point increase for 6. I think at that point, Bulgrin are done, mate. Bulgrin are absolutely done. You can take 5 Grey Knight Terminators for 10 points cheaper than 6 Bulgrin. And arguably, those Grey Knight Terminators are better because they have the 2+ save, plus the invulnerable save. Sure, they don't have the feel no pain, but they're way more potent in combat, can actually do some shooting damage, and can regrow a guy a turn, and have got better objective control. So overall, I think Bulgrin are out. If you're taking a squad of 6 Bulgrin, chuck them out, put them on the shelf, get yourself a goddamn unit of 5 Grey Knight Terminators, bang them in your list, and basically get the same shit, but for a better price point. There's no argument in my mind for that. So Bulgrin, there you are. But speaking of potato skin eaters, Ogryn squads are looking very interesting. Now, nothing has changed to fix some of the fundamental problems of Ogryn, which is they're quite fragile. That toughness 6 doesn't really mean, and that 6 at feel no pain doesn't really mean much when you've got a 5+ armor save. But Ogryns are now down. I've had a points decrease. They're now 60 points for 3 and 120.6. That is almost half the points of Bulgrin. You can get 18 Ogryn in your list for a paltry, a mere 360 points. And that's got potential. However, I'm not entirely certain, although I don't completely dismiss it, I'm not entirely certain we're going to see the full 18 Ogryn spam. What I think we might see is people chucking a unit of Ogryn in as a cheap pseudo infantry blob, because after all, 6 Ogryns now cost the same as 20 Cadians, and in a stand-up fight, those Ogryns win 9 times out of 10. The Ogryns have got 36 heavy bolter equivalent shots at AP -2 within 9-inch range, and then they get an additional 24 attacks in close combat. In a straight-up fight, those Ogryn beat the absolute crap out of Cadians and have basically the same number of wounds and the same save, but they've got a feel no pain, which they don't need a command squad for, and they've got the better toughness. So yeah, I mean, why wouldn't you run Ogryn squads over Cadian squads? I guess, or any, like, even Krieger squads or something. I guess the reason why is because of the objective control. So that's why I think you might see people swapping one blob out, but if you go full 18, you might struggle with OC. The other way I think you're going to see Ogryns used is going to be in Chimeras. I think the Ogryn fake taxi meme is now no longer a meme. I think it's a fucking dream. Because Ogryns in Chimeras get lethal hits. Because the way firing deck works is the Chimera basically becomes equipped with the Ogryn's Ripper guns. That's a lot of lethal hits from a lot of damage to weapons that you can spaff out. 6 heavy bolter shots with sustained hits from the Chimera itself, and then an additional 12 if you're within 9-inch range from the Ogryns. That's the potential to generate 3 damage to lethal hits. And let me tell you, someone who runs a lot of Chimeras and pretty much always defaults to the double heavy bolter, I've been loving the amount of lethal hits my chimeras have been generating before I've been sticking goddamn Ogryns in them. Now the idea of having even more lethal hits and them being damaged to lethal hits coming from my chimera. I'm not sure you'll see I'm not sure you will see three 6-man Ogryn squads, but I think you could very easily see 3 chimeras with Ogryns inside, and maybe see 2 chimeras. Definitely see 2 chimeras. I think 2 chimeras with Ogryn in now is basically an auto include. It's just very, very good. It's a very good Daka tank, and the lethal hits make it able to threaten vehicles verily. So that is the abhumans covered. Then let's get to some of the other accoutrements. We've got some buffs for field ordnance batteries and for heavy weapon squads. Now, field ordnance batteries have gone down to 100 points. That's a 20-point decrease. Now, again, like with Ogryns, fundamental things haven't been fixed about the field ordnance batteries. They've not suddenly had a whole new data sheet, but they're just a lot cheaper. I don't think you'll see people taking 3 field ordnance batteries. The reason for this is hiding them. They're actually quite big models, so unless you've got very, very dense terrain, you might struggle to hide them. Also, you've got to remember that if you're like, oh, well, I can take 2 Basils or 3 Fobs, yeah, but the Basils hit on 4s, the Fobs hit on 5s. So you're going to have to spend orders on them, and then suddenly they're not cheaper. The way I think you make field ordnance batteries work now is you take 2 of them with bombast cannons. That's 4 bombast cannons in total, and you take Creed or Strachan or any other officer that can do 2 orders, and you order both of them. That will come in at about 255 points. That is 35 points cheaper than taking double Basilisk, and well, that's a point saving. And the field ordnance batteries get sustained. If you take them with Creed, they're going to be able to match the Basilisk for AP because of cheaper fields of fire. And you're going to have the fact that you don't need to strength 7 to strength 8. It's very, very little difference in terms of wounding things. You'll be wounding vehicles on 5s, wounding infantry on 3s, and then you've got both being damaged too. The Basilisk put out less but a more reliable number of shots. The field batteries can swing a bit more, but they've got the sustain to make them a bit more reliable, and they've got double the amount of blast potential because you get plus. Yeah, each gun gets blast in the field ordnance battery, so you've got double the amount of blast potential, which I think makes up for them being a little bit swingier. So I think bombast cannons are now a viable alternative to double Basilisk. I think a lot of people will stick with double Basilisk, but it's important to recognize that not everyone can get their hands on Basilisk. One of the things is they're always out of stock. Whenever they're in stock, they go out of stock again. So I think double Basilisk in theory might be better, but you can't play a game with a theory Basilisk. You can very easily get your hands on ordnance batteries. Put it this way: 2 ordnance batteries in the hand is worth more than 2 Basilisks in the bush. There you go. Then we get to heavy weapon squads. Heavy weapon squads have also had a 10-point decrease. That's very nice. The thing is, though, that I don't think you're going to take mortars on them. Mortars are just too dog shit. They don't get lethal hits. They don't have any AP. They don't have any damage. I think even if you took 3 of them for 150 points, you're still going to need to be able to order them around, which is going to cost you another 100 points if you take like Creed and a platoon command squad or something, or Creed and a Castellan. So at that point, they're not that cheap, and they don't do any damage. What I think you might end up doing is having heavy weapon squads with las cannons. I think you're going to use them in 2 ways. I think you're going to either have them just covering a firing lane. I think you might take 1 or 2 squads in this capacity. If you've got like a spare platoon command order, putting around for like a Lord Solar Blob, I think that you're going to have like maybe 1 or 2 squads of these heavy weapons with las cannons covering a firing lane, hitting on threes because of heavy and take aim. I think the way you make them survivable is you distract the enemy with something much more important. Think about it this way: if there's a Demolisher tank or a Rogue or Dawn barreling down at you, what are you going to shoot? The las cannons or the Demolisher tank that's in your face? You're naturally going to be inclined to go for that Demolisher tank. That means that the las cannons can just fire and fire and fire and do a surprising amount of damage. Now, I've actually been on the receiving end of this prior to this update. If you go back and watch the Allspec Tactics Battle Report, he basically did that to me, and it was very effective. He actually raw dogged it. He didn't give his las cannons any orders whatsoever, and he just started giving them orders as other units in his army died. And I think that is the approach to take. I think you keep them cheap, and if they happen to get buffs, great, and if they don't, then it doesn't matter because they're so cheap, and if they die, well, then it's 50 points. The other way I think you make these things work, though, is with the Wish.com Predator. The Predator, we've got Predator at home, the Temu tank. Take your las cannons, put them inside a Chimera. Now they get lethal hits against vehicles, which is what they want to have, because now the Chimera counts as firing the las cannons, and the Chimera's got squadron, and now they're protected, and it comes in at 120 points, which is cheaper than an actual Predator. And you've got a Chimera with double heavy bolter, a heavy stubber, hunter killer missile, and double las cannon, and the las gunner raise. It's actually quite potent. Again, they're only going to hit on fives unless you've got an order for them, but that's actually a pretty viable target for an order at that point. And or they can stay still and hit on fours because the las cannons have still got heavy. I think that's actually quite viable. The only problem that I have with that is there's a lot of stuff we want to put in Chimeras. We want to put Ogres in Chimeras. We want to put heavy weapon squads in Chimeras. We want to put Catchans in Chimeras. There's only 6 Chimeras to go around, and there's a lot of different things that benefit from going inside the Chimera. What we really need is GW to re-release the Storm Chimera with the Death Core of Krieg so we can take 6 Chimeras, and then we're Gucci. Bear in mind, you do get 3 heavy weapons from the heavy weapon team, but you can only fire 2 of them out of the top because the Chimera's firing deck is only 2. All right. Now we get to, then we've got Sentinels. Scout Sentinels have gone down by 5 points each, meaning it's 15 points cheaper. Oh, by the way, regarding that direct fire thing, I think there's an argument to be made for direct fire field ordnance batteries now. They're 100 points. It's pretty cheap. And the heavy lance cannon is strength 14. That is not to be overlooked. It is not to be overlooked at all. I'm not saying it's good, but I think if someone puts heavy lance cannons in their list now, and if I was to do a list review, I wouldn't necessarily tell them to take them out, depending on what else is in the list. Use the same principle of have something big and distracting in front to keep them alive. And also bear in mind that field batteries aren't durable against heavy weapons, but they're absolutely durable against small arms because they're 12 wounds per squad, T5 4-up save. That'll be a 3-up if you took them in some cover. So I think at that point it creates a bit of a dilemma for your opponent because if they fire at the field, they need to fire big guns to get rid of the field ordnance battery, but that's then big guns which aren't going into your tanks. If they put the big guns into the tanks, the field ordnance batteries are actually punchy enough where ignoring them could result in a lot of damage for the enemy. So I actually think there's a lot of potential there. Yeah. Christopher, rapid fire, ogres have rapid fire 3. So they have 3 shots, and then when they're in half range, they get the rapid fire amount. So if it's rapid fire 3, they get an extra 3 shots. So that's how ogres get 6 shots. Rapid fire isn't +1 shot anymore. It's rapid fire X, where X is the number of extra shots you get for being in rapid fire range. So a heavy stubber is rapid fire 3, so it gets 3 shots at long range, 6 shots at close range. A las gun is rapid fire 1, so it gets 1 shot at long range, and it gets 2 shots at close range. And there's a whole bunch of weapons. Rapid fire no longer doubles your number of shots or gives you +1 shot. There's a whole bunch of weapons out there which are like fire 3 shots, get in rapid fire range. It's rapid fire 2, then with 5 shots. It's actually quite a clever thing, and it gives GW a bit more leeway with a bit more nuance when it comes to rapid fire. So going back to Sentinels, Scout Sentinels, 15 points cheaper. That's just nice. That's just really nice. 55 points for Scout, 55 points for Daring Recon, 55 points for a Las Cannon. I'm not a big fan of lone Scout Sentinels running up and doing objectives. I'd rather take Scout Chimeras, because then I've got objective and OC. But 55 points is damn tempting. I think you'll either see 1 or 2 of these things being chucked in the list for cheap. I think literally you'll see 1 chucked in the list for a cheap Scout if you need like a extend battle lines turn 1 or something. Or I think you'll see people taking squadrons of 3 of them because they're just cheap sources of las cannon fire. And that's one thing to take away from this update, is we've got a lot of extra las cannon fire. A lot. Potentially las cannons on ordnance batteries, las cannon heavy weapon squads and chimeras, las cannons on sentinels. Oops, all las cannons. It's never been more affordable. There's a winter sale on las cannons right now. Let's get to the last one though. And this is the biggie. This is everything we've seen up until now is nice. It's like, ooh, I might be tempted by fobs now. Ooh, I might be tempted by heavy weapons now. Ooh, I might be tempted by Ogryns. Ooh, my sentinels are a little cheaper now. Shame I'm not going to be taking Borgrins. Do you know what I mean? Like, they're all nice things, a little bit of flavor that might, you know, we might try out for a game, and if it turns out being good, then that's great, right? This next one is huge. This next one is guard meta defining. And I have got a deep dive video coming out on this. So I'll give you guys the summary of it now. All right. Tank commanders. Now, some people will look at tank commanders going up to 225 points, because that's a 20-point increase. And they're going to think, why? Tank commanders were awful. Why have they received an increase? I'm going to tell you right now, I will happily pay that 20-point increase every single time. In fact, in my list now, I'm taking triple tank commander, because this isn't this isn't a random points increase. Tank commander's got the squadron keyword. That is so impactful, it cannot be overstated. So firstly, by getting the squadron keyword, it means that your tank commander now gets lethal hits. That is just a straight damage boost. In truth, that alone is worth 20 points. Just that is alone worth 20 points. Okay? But now, because they have squadron, tank commanders can issue orders to themselves. So now, every single tank commander is basically rolling around with lethal hits and ballistic skill 3+, because you're just going to tell them, take aim every single time. But then there's more. You have to remember that orders last until your next command phase. They don't last till the end of your turn, they last till the end of your next command phase. This means that when your tank commander dies, or if your tank commander dies, and you trigger death befitting an officer, you fire as if you had 4 wounds, you're still under the effect of your order, you death befitting an officer on a 3+. And then you have to remember that Born Soldiers is also not just in your shooting phase. Born Soldiers is whenever you make a ranged attack. So that means when you death befitting an officer, not only are you hitting on 3s, but you also have lethal hits then. This is a huge dilemma for your opponent. If they shoot your tank, if they don't shoot your tank commander, it's going to keep pounding them. If they do shoot your tank commander, it's going to keep pounding them. And remember that tank commanders and death befitting officer is a little different to a lot of other people's shoot back. Most other abilities, when you get to shoot back at the enemy, you have to shoot back at the enemy that killed you or did the last damage to you, that triggered the ability, right? Or the stratagem. Not with Death Befitting Officer. You can shoot any unit you want when you die. Now, this is big because it means your opponent might kill you with one unit, and then you shoot back, and you can shoot at one of the units that they haven't activated yet. And then if you destroy that unit, you've basically traded in their turn. That's big. That's so big. Also, there's even more. I want to say a big thank you to Mad Larkin for reminding me on this one. You can now put your tank commander in reserve, and when it comes in from reserve, it can order itself. So you can use your tank commanders as like pseudo indirect fire that can come in turn 3 and start threatening people's like home objectives. Even better, you could use rapid ingress on that tank commander. So it comes in your opponent's turn, and your opponent is like, well, I'll shoot you and kill you. And you're like, that's okay. I'll Death Befitting an Officer. So if you shoot me, I still get to shoot you back. So there's no loss for me here. And if you shoot me, guess what I might do? I might shoot, bear in mind, rapid ingress is the end of your opponent's movement phase. So you can kind of, you can use it as a sneaky surprise. And then if your opponent has moved off the home objective, and you move on, not move off the home objective. If they've moved away from the home objective and they've got something shit holding that home objective, then you bring the tank commander in and they kill you with something good, and then you use Death Befitting Officer to blow them off the home objective. Now they're not getting their prime objective for holding the home objective. Rapid ingress plus strategic reserve tank commander plus benefit a Death Befitting an Officer plus orders is incredible. And yes, if you rapid ingress, your officer gets to order himself. Because orders happen in your command phase or the turn that you are deployed on the board. It doesn't have to be your turn or the turn that you are deployed on the board. So there's a lot more. There's a lot to this. But long story short, tank commanders are now absolutely the best tank, and they are worth 225 points. A lot of people who aren't convinced, if you're a Longbeard, let me remind you something. Remember in 8th edition, and in 9th edition, when tank commanders were 225 points, 235 points, and you put 3 of them in your list every single time. And even when GW cut the points and cut the points and cut the points of every other Rust variant, to the point where there was like Russes for like 130 points, you still didn't take those 130 point Russes. Why? Because you were happy to pay that premium for that tank commander having ballistic skill 3+, and that's what you basically have got now. We are reliving the glory days of old school tank commanders, and that is beautiful. That is very, very beautiful. But there's a little bit more to this, okay? There's a little bit more to this, all right? Do not see this as a 20-point increase on your tank commanders. Do not see this as if you take 3 of them, you're spending 60 points more on your tanks. That's not true. Weirdly, this is a point saving, okay? Because what this change has done has made the Lord Solar no longer an auto-include. You now only take the Lord Solar if you are building around him. Now, the Lord Solar isn't bad. Don't get the wrong end of the stick. I'm not saying the Lord Solar is bad. The extra CP is very good. Getting 3 orders is still very good. You're going to need it if you're including super heavies. And the redeploy, while not something that I put a huge amount of weight on, is still something to basically have a bit of insurance if you fuck up your deployment. Okay? But the Lord Solar is no longer needed because the number one reason you were taking this guy it was the most cost-effective way of getting 3 vehicle orders in your army. That was it. But now tank commanders can order themselves. So where previously you would buy 3 or 4 Leman Russes and then take a Lord Solar in his command blob, which costs about 240 points, to then have 3 orders for those Russes, now you just cut out the middly man. You just take the Russes and they just order themselves. So if you're taking 3 tank commanders now, and that's cost you 60 more points, but you're no longer spending 240 points on the Lord Solar, then overall that means you're actually saving 180 points. And if you and you could go for a 4th Lieben Russ or Rogel Dorm, and you could have one of your tank commanders with Grand Strategist, but I wouldn't even count that Grand Strategist as an additional points cost, because you're pretty much always taking Grand Strategist in your list anyway. So it's like you're saving 180 points. Now, I know what some of you are thinking, but Mordian, I wasn't taking 3 tank commanders. Before, I was taking like Russes that cost about 170 points, maybe Exterminators, maybe Battle Tanks, maybe the Executioners, right? That's fair enough. Even with taking that into account, where you're spending 55 points more on each Russ, where you're spending 165 points. Okay? That's still cheaper than spending 240 points on the Lord Solar. You're saving, what's that? Like 75 points? You're saving 75 points, and that can go a long way in the guard. And so what I would say is, if you were spamming tank commanders already, you just saved, which a lot of competitive players were. Some people liked the tank commanders, some people didn't, but a lot of people were spamming tank commanders already. If you were already doing that, you've just saved 180 points. If you were not already doing that, you're still saving yourself about 75 points, 75, 80 points. That's an extra Chimera. As Lumachak said, that's an extra Chimera. And then, bear in mind what we talked about before, where you could save points by going for Field Arms, Batteries, and Creed. That's another 30 points that you could save on top of this. Another 35 points you could save on top of this. So I think if you lean into the changes, if you adapt to the changes, then, but without having to really change many models. I mean, you're taking the same Lieben Russes and now just saying they're tank commanders, right? So this is a great change, because you're not even having to re-buy more models. It's not like you're having to go out there and spend more money. You're literally like, even if you just lean into these changes, I think that most guard armies now, if they're a bit clever about this and they just look at these changes and they embrace them, can save between 100 and 200 points without having to go out there and buy a whole bunch of new models, without having to chase the meta. Just taking what they're already taking and doing it slightly more efficiently. That's saving 100 to 200 points. That is more stuff that you can cram into your army. Now, if you're saving an extra like 100 to 200 points, that's an extra tank you can throw in there if you want. That's an extra Hellhound you could throw in there if you wanted to. That's extra Chimeras. That is an extra infantry blob. If you're like, man, I just need some extra infantry, some extra screening in my army, bang, it's in there. That could be. You could take the same as you've always taken, get better firepower out of that list, because now these tank commanders have got lethal hits, and now you're getting a free Ogren blob. And in the guard, you can get a hell of a lot for 100 points, and you can get in fucking tons for an extra 200-ish points. Yeah, you can get a lot. I mean, if you're thinking you don't want to take an extra tank, but you want to get like, because you're worried about, obviously, then you wouldn't have tank orders for it. What about getting a unit of armor sentinels or a unit of scout sentinels? Those are between 150 and 200 points, and they don't need tank orders. They can be ordered by infantry officers. So if you've got like a spare platoon command squad order knocking around here, or you've got like Strachan rocking around a Chimera, or Creed rocking around a Chimera, or like a Creed command blob that you were using, you got your order right there. Or you go for a Scion Giga blob. Why not I think that's the biggie. I think you take a unit of Scions, put a Scion command squad in there, you've got pseudo indirect fire in your list, and you've got damage dealing in your list as well. And that's what I'm talking about. Like, don't look at these points changes in isolation. Look at these points changes together. You might say to yourself, oh, I think 2 Basilisks are better than double fob with Creed. That's true. Potentially. but I would definitely take double Fob and Creed and a Scion Gigablob over double Basilisk. 100% of the time. 100%. If you save 180 points because you go down the Tank Commander route now, you've saved just that's enough for 2 Aquilon squads. And Aquilons are very hot right now. Quick mention about Aquilons. They stayed at 90 points. That is fucking amazing. I think Gaunt's Ghosts have now been supplanted by Aquilons. I think that taking 2 5-man squads of Scions has been supplanted by Aquilons. Yeah. I think every guard army is going to include at least 1 to 3. I think every guard army is going to have 1 to 3 squads of Aquilons in it now. I think 1 is sensible. I think 3 is hilarious and can unlock some potential, but I think 1 is sensible. Yeah. So overall, I think that guard has done very, very, very well from these point exchanges, but specifically from the Tank Commander gaining squadron. And if I may say one final thing, I think that Tank Commanders getting the squadron keyword is something GW really, really didn't want to do. Over the course of 8th and 9th edition, GW tried everything to make people take regular Russes, and no one bothered. No one bothered. But in 10th edition, no one took Tank Commanders. People would take like 1 or 2 of them, which is kind of how GW envisioned them being taken. But people complained because they wanted the old Tank Commanders back, and because it didn't feel right that Tank Commanders couldn't order themselves. And I think GW has basically just gone, screw it. If you guys want your goddamn Tank Commander spam back, you can have your goddamn Tank Commander spam back. At least for the next 3 months until your Codex comes out. I think this is kind of a soft admittance from GW that guard players are just going to spam Tank Commanders. And it's the easiest solution. It is the easiest solution to making guard armor more effective and to get past the order drought that guard has been suffering since the beginning of 10th edition. They've tried pulling all sorts of levers, and at the end of the day, they've now gone with the most simple solution. And I think this was pointed out by Mad Larkin, but Tank Commanders are basically the same price as they were at the beginning of the edition now. So think about that for a moment. Think about where Tank Commanders were at the beginning of the edition. We've gone all around the houses, and now Tank Commanders are the same points cost as they were, but they're so much more effective. Now they're hitting on 3s. Now they've got lethal hits. Now they can order themselves. Yeah, which opens up all of these opportunities for their ability, for rapid ingress and all that kind of stuff. So overall, Tank Commander meta incoming? No. Tank Commander meta confirmed. At least that's what I think. But of course, if you're watching this now, let me know in chat what you think. And if you're watching this post live, let me know what you think down in the comment section below. There we go. Would you like to know more? If so, then please consider becoming a channel member or patron. By supporting the channel, not only will you be doing your part, but you'll also be helping me create more content for your viewing pleasure and unlocking a whole host of perks. You get everything from a badge next to your name, custom emojis, but the big one is access to the Mordian Glory Discord server, an online community with almost 2,500 active members. It's always popping off in the MG Discord. We've got channels for army lists, hobbying, tactics, stories, and even a pretty spicy meme section as well. For all you greenhorns that wanted to see the Mordian glory hole, today is your lucky day. And joking aside, I do want to say a massive thank you to all of the current channel members and Patreons. You guys are amazing. Truly the lifeblood of the channel. I could not do Mordian Glory full-time without the incredible and generous support of my members. So thank you guys so much. And last but certainly not least, I want to say a personal thank you to all of my top tier Patreons. These are the War Masters, the people who have truly gone above and beyond the call of duty. So a heartfelt thank you to Alex Dengal, Bon Vert, Lord Pryor, Mark Panconi, RJ Scorpion, Swordfish Trombone, Try Again Bragg, John Stubbs, Nick Walsh, Diesel Fox, and August Barney. Seriously guys, thank you from the bottom of my heart. Your support is incredible and it makes a huge difference. Thank you so much. That's all for now. Hope you've all enjoyed today's video, and of course, as always, see you guys next time.